Sure, done. And I will make you a co-host as well, Margot.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Awesome.
Excellent. We might just give people another minute or so, and then we can get started.
I drink a bit more of my coffee. So Marco, just to say, we're going to do it in terms of we haven't had a chance to chat. We're going to do the payment the old-fashioned way. Yeah? We're not going to use the new system.
Okay,
Just
fantastic.
to be clear, we're going to do
Oh
the
my
links.
goodness.
Yeah, not at this stage until we're familiar with it.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Okay. Well, perhaps we can make a start, and if we're recording, oh, Grace has just joined us in the nick of time there. Let Grace jump in first. Just got to connect her audio. Hello, Grace. How are you?
Hi, Rebecca. I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Excellent. We're going to make a start. So I'm going to hand over to my colleagues, to Florence and to Margot, to run you through the financial forms. They both have a lot more experience with this particular topic than I do. So I'm going to lean on their expertise and ask them to walk you through it.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I'm going to apologize at the beginning just to say that I have a lot of noises behind me, as often happens on New York Live. So apologies if you hear a lot of noises when I speak. I'll try to mute when I don't. So good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Hello, Vivian, and Ruma, Grace, Deborah, Bertha, Nisa. Really great to have you with us today. So this particular meeting, and Aditya, I didn't see Aditya. Is Aditya coming?
Hi.
Hi, Aditya. Great. Thank you for joining.
Yeah. Sorry for late. Actually, I'm still working. I was in my office. Yeah. Hi, Rebecca.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Thanks for joining late. I'm sure it must be a bit late for you.
No, 5 minutes late only. Yeah.
No, late in terms of the day, not late in terms of being late. No, we haven't started yet, Aditya, so you're perfect in time.
Okay.
So today's meeting is following up on our last, is to really talk about, the discussion that we had and the stipend that we agreed that both the conveners and the participant will receive for their contribution, participation, expertise into this process. And as always, with anything to do with payments, there's always a lot of complication, particularly when you're doing it across countries. So we just wanted to make sure that we explain to you both the payment information and also the form for the W8, which is probably the most confusing form, maybe not on the planet, but not far from it. It's a very confusing form. So we're going to run through with you and also get your questions, any of your questions that you may have. And of course, once you, if you haven't started on the form, once you do the form, we will also be there to respond to any question you have. So don't worry, one way or the other, we are going to be problem solving with you to ensure that the payments are made smoothly. As we discussed, we talked about the stipend for conveners, which is going to be $1,000, and the stipend for the participant, which is going to be $500. The stipend is going to be divided into two parts. A first part, which is going to be about, I'm going to guess, 2/3. We'll give you the figure, which is going to be upon signing the agreement. And then the final third, which is going to be on the finalization of the brief and the work of and that's to ensure, as well as we discussed, to ensure that there's accountability as well from all, that everybody participates, and so that it's fair to the auditors. We don't want to be in a situation where just a few people participate and others don't turn up to meetings or don't participate, because that would be unfair to both the conveners and the participants. We've shared with you on the global platform a couple of links, and I hope that you've all been able to see this. Have you all been able to see the links on the platform that we shared with you? What do you have? I see Eugenia is has just joined us. Hi, Eugenia.
Hello.
Welcome.
Great.
We just started.
Okay.
So I hope you've been able to see the links that we send you. There are basically two components to the payment itself. The first is the payment information, which we're going to start to talk about, and the second is the form, the W8, which we'll talk afterwards. And let me start, and Margot, of course, feel free to come in and add. Margot spends a lot of time as well with people, chasing and helping them with the form. Let me see if I can share my screen. Apologies, I'm going to have to do this. That didn't work. And okay. Bear with me. Share screen. Does that work? Are you
Yes.
all able to share
Yeah.
the screen? Okay, fabulous. All right. So basically, the information you're going to provide is going to go into a secure system that is managed by Tide Center. And the reason this goes to Tide Center is our fiscal agent. We work legally through Tide Center. It's like our back office, if you want. And so the information, the payments is going to come from us, but through Tide Center. And so the first thing to do is to go to the wire form, and you will then be given an opportunity to answer a few questions, and including providing your name, your address, explain what pay type you are. And on this list, actually, you would be probably responding participant, that you're a participant, not a vendor, not an employee, not a volunteer, but a participant is the right thing to answer. I will triple check that, but that's my understanding, and confirm this with you, but you should add that you're a participant. Put your name. One of the things that Tides has put in, and it's really important to confirm with you, is that your name and your contact information, including address, must match between the information you're going to put into your payment information and the information that you're going to be putting into your W8. It's really important. And the reason it's important is if they do not match, then Tides will not process the payment. It will be on hold, and they will basically ask you to amend your information. So I know we keep saying this to people, and people say, yeah, but they don't double check. Before you post anything, double check that your name, your address, any other contact information for you is the same between this form and your W8. Otherwise, your money is going to be delayed and you're going to get frustrated. So that's the main thing. You are, the stipend, of course, is given to you on an individual basis, not on an organizational basis. Yeah. So you need to be putting your information as an individual, not as an organization. So that's another piece of information. The rest is fairly obvious in terms of your country, your address, this is again, we're talking about your personal address. So your address where your bank account is linked to, but it is your address, yeah. And then other detailed information and contact detail. Any question on this first page? Just checking. I'm not seeing the chat, just to let you know. So just asking whether if you have any question, just come in and let me know. Yeah. The second information is the bank beneficiary information, which is you. Again, it's very important. Yeah, Ruma, I see your hand up. I do see the chat, or at least I see the hands up.
I have questions
Yep.
about that address. So I wanted to know, like, what if like we are like it's not like temporary address, or it is the bank account number address? I'm just confused about this.
On the first page or on this one? On the
First
second,
page.
on the first page. So the address that you're giving it is your address, your personal address.
Yeah.
But it is the address, it should be the address that your personal address that you've also given to the bank.
Mm.
So it's the address
Oh.
that the bank knows you, where you live.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, if your address is temporary, the question would be, which address does the bank have? And I think that's the main question, is that it's really important for the address, your personal address, which is known to the bank. This is where the bank contacts you. This is what the bank knows in terms of where you live. That's really the important address. And that matches what the bank knows about your personal address. Does that explain?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Let us know. Again, we don't, we know that these things can get quite complicated. So, if you've got any further question after this, or when you're filling it, just let us know. Yeah. So again, this is your bank account information that you're putting in there. So the name on your bank account, which should be the name that you've given at the beginning, because your payment is as an individual, not as an organization. Sometimes we have, of course, contractors that are doing things on behalf of the organization. In this case, you're receiving a stipend as a participant in your capacity as yourself and your expertise. Yeah. So your name, the SWIFT code, and sometimes it's called something else. Sometimes it's called an IBAN. If you're not sure of what it is, your bank will be able to tell you. And that is actually the code that every bank has in order to do international transaction. Sometimes it's called a SWIFT, sometimes it's called an IBAN. There might be a name in other places, but it's basically a code that each bank, and it's a different code for each bank, has internationally to enable them to receive and send payment. So if you're not sure what your SWIFT code or your IBAN code is, contact your bank and ask them and say you're going to receive an international payment, and they need to know what is the codes. What is the bank's international code? IBAN or SWIFT are usually the two terms that are known, but there might be another term where you are, but that's really the term that's known. Then you put your bank account number, your bank, and that's your current account, or whatever the accounts you wish to receive the money. That's the bank account number that you put in. As they say, no space or dashes. Then you put your bank name, the city, the country, the province, and the currency. Margot, do you want to say something on the currency?
Yes. So we have encountered with some accounts, usually accounts that are in Europe, that they do not receive US dollars. I would not worry about that right now, because it seems like it's an issue that is specific to a European account. And so if there is an issue where your bank cannot receive the international wire in US dollars, I can work with you to sort that out, because we have worked through that issue in the past. But it would be good to know what currency your bank account can receive wires in. And if it is US dollars, that would be good to note in that portion of the form.
So I think the default would be US dollars, but if, as Margot says, your bank is not able to receive US dollars, let us know and put the currency in which of your country generally where the bank would receive the amount. And let us know if that's the case, if that makes sense, and Margot can follow. Yeah,
Definitely.
right. Do put your hand up if you have any question. There is a question about an intermediary or a correspondent bank, and that's complicating things even further. But there are some banks, and I don't even know why, but there are some banks that in order to receive international funds, I think it's maybe the smaller banks that are not operating globally, or at least in a number of countries, they need to do payments through another bank. Now that your bank will be able to tell you that, if that's the case. And so again, I would ask you to, I would recommend for you to go to, to ask your bank, call them, or go to them and ask them, explain to them that you're going to be receiving some international payments and you want to make sure you've got the full information in order to do that. And you can ask about the currency, and you can ask also about whether there is an intermediary or a correspondent bank. If there is, then that information, you need to respond that, because that information is needed by Tides for also transferring the money. So just beware. Most banks do not need an intermediary, but it does happen that sometimes that they do, and you might not be aware of it. So it's a good idea to call your bank or pop in there if you're able to, if it's accessible, and ask them this question.
Florence, can I just say something on that particular one? When you see this portion of the form for intermediary corresponding bank, it doesn't have an asterisk next to it. So it's not mandatory to have that information. And I think the reason for that is when you put in your SWIFT number or your IBAN number, it immediately triggers the corresponding bank if there is one. I only point this out because I don't want you to delay submitting this form if you don't have the information on the intermediary bank. So that is something we can always follow up with you afterwards. Right. Yeah, but that is not a piece of information that you need to delay the form for.
Great. Okay. Now, they also said that you're able to upload the information for wire transfer. So if you have a file, the bank sometimes will have a form that they provide for this that provides all of the SWIFT and other details, address, and so on. You're also able to upload it, but again, that's not required. So if you don't have such a form, you just provide the information manually. And then probably the most complicated part of this entire thing is the final, which says, please attach a bank authorization letter as confirmation of your wire information. Now, that's often a source of huge confusion anywhere in the world, including in the US. If you're able to get a bank, the reason they're asking a bank authorization and what it is, it's simply to confirm your bank account information. So it's not confirmation about you or confirmation. It's actually that in this way, Tides can ensure that the information you provided, it can double check that the information you provided. That's the primary purpose of this. Banks generally, you can ask them, and it's basically they're going to write a letter. I'm not entirely sure what it's called, authorization, because it's actually not about authorization, but they will confirm that you have a bank account and these are the details of the bank account, and confirm maybe the SWIFT or the IBAN and your address and name. That's generally what's required. Now, we have encountered, and as I said, even in the US where Tides is based, where sometimes people say, well, actually, we cannot get a bank authorization letter. For a whole bunch of reasons, you might not be able to do that. In which case, one thing that can be done is for you to, if you have access to internet, which, and we can, again, if you have issues, we can talk about this. And if you're able to actually go to your account, if you're able to take a screenshot of the page of your statement that has your bank statement, that has your name, your address, and the bank account information. We don't need to know what's in your bank or whatever. Do not share any of that. It's confidential information to you, and don't share that. But just a screenshot of the information in relation to your name, bank account, and all the bank account information. So your account number, any IBAN or any code that's there. Sometimes routing numbers are included within that as well, which helps to identify where the funds should go. And in which case, take the screenshot and upload the screenshot of that information into the system instead of a bank authorization letter. So the two are possible, but be careful that if you take a screenshot, the information needs to be very readable, and it needs to be the information again that we're asking here. So the information about your name, your address, the bank account information, including the account number, routing number, and if available, any IBAN number, and details of the bank. So the bank name and the address of the bank generally is in statements as well. So that's the kind of information that they need. And so you can upload a screenshot of that if you're not able to get a bank authorization letter. Margaret, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, definitely. I would recommend to avoid a delay to get the bank authorization letter, because the bank authorization letter is on the letterhead for the bank and it's stamped. Usually when you request an authorization letter from your bank, it comes and they stamp it with a date. And I think that is what they're looking for here. I know that's what they're looking for here. But if you cannot get the authorization letter, as Florence mentioned, we can work with the screenshot. And if we need more information, I will come back to you and ask you for that. But just to avoid many steps, unnecessary steps, if you can get an authorization letter, that's the one to get.
Definitely, but also know that there is an alternative. So don't panic if that proves difficult, because I know from experience that in many cases, not many cases, some cases it might be difficult. Aditya.
Yeah, actually, I just want to know, do I have any format to get the bank authorization letter? I mean, is the specific, because in India specifically, we don't have such format where bank can give the author, and here they are very, like, curious, and sometimes they think very, negative way also. If I request them for the authorization letter too, and that is especially if I want to withdraw money from the foreign exchange, so they are very suspicious. I mean, the way they're looking at us. So in that, if you have any format, so I can easily just to tell them to fill up and send us. And especially now it's very difficult because I shifted in other place, so I had to write to them, to my, I mean, local bank branch.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
There's no format, just to be clear, there is no format per se that the bank needs to have. The important thing is that it has the information around, the bank itself, the bank account, your name. There is no format. We can definitely.
And do we also, I mean, like to mention the SWIFT code and all. So if you give us what are the things required from the bank side, so then it will be easy to collect or ask them to get it. Because
so Aditya, the information, the information that you see in this form online, the first page with your information, name, contact details, and so on, and then the information around the bank name, the bank city, is what they're looking for.
Okay.
So it's literally just confirming your bank accounts, your your detail, and also the bank's detail in terms of your account, in terms of the account number and so on.
Yeah, is it okay to send the checkbook or the bank statement copy? I mean, just heading of the bank statement online. So that will be also feasible for
Yes.
government, because
It's
it will
feasible, yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Make sure that it has that the bank statement information that you send has that information. Make sure
Yeah,
that
yeah.
the information that's required is there, and you can scan it or take a screenshot of it. Do not include, of course, the information about the money in your account and anything. So don't send the full bank statement
Yeah,
because
yeah, I
it's
got
private
it.
information. Just the bank.
Screenshot. Yeah. Got it. Or cancel check detail also will be enough, no? Cancel. check.
Avoid check, not a cancel. Avoid check is also acceptable. In the US, it's used. It's not always used in other countries, but avoid check is acceptable.
Okay. Yeah, even in India also we do have practice.
Okay. Then if you have void check, a void check is perfect as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else has question on this? Rim?
Ruma had a question in the chat about not being able to get an authorization letter. And I think it's the same as we just said to Aditya. If you can do a screenshot with your bank statement that has your name, with of course the bank information, but do not have any personal details of what's in your account, or we can do a voided check, as Florence mentioned. Does that answer your question, Ruma?
I'm not sure. Is Ruma there? I'm not
She's
hearing.
on mute.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I see also a question from Vivian. Will you use any payment application? Can you explain what you mean by payment application? Can you hear me, Vivian?
I think she means like Venmo or Cash App or
I see.
yeah.
No, so unfortunately, payments have to be done through bank accounts and through communication to the bank account. So we need your bank account information. It can't be done through PayPal or transfer other transfer of money. It's got to be through a bank account. If that's a major challenge for you, then Vivian, maybe we can, other colleagues, maybe reach out to us and we can have a discussion about what the issue is and what can be done about that. Does that answer your question, Vivian?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, right. Okay, I see that Ruma's got another question. For the screenshot, do we have to visit the bank? Is that your question, Ruma? So what we mean by a screenshot, well, actually it depends. It's a very good question. It depends on whether you have access to your account through internet online. You have a lot of banks nowadays, you're able to log in and have your bank information where you can see your statement. But you don't have, if your bank use paper statement, I don't know what the system is like where you are. You're able to literally take a photo using your phone of the information that's required using your phone. So that also is something you can do. You can take your bank statement and your paper bank statement and take a picture of your account information, the bank detail, all the information that's required in there. You can actually take a picture of that and upload that. Thank you, Viviane, for that advice. Again, when if you encounter problems, reach out, and if you have colleagues who actually, like Viviane, have done this, have good advice, that would be really helpful as well. Reach out to them and ask.
And I'm always here to help with any questions, anything that you've run into. It's no problem. We'll make sure that you get sorted out.
Definitely, Margot's got lots of experience.
Yeah, I also have bank accounts in South Africa, so I'm well aware of all of the hoops that it takes to get money wired to another account, so I can help you with all of that.
Perfect. So that's all for the payment information. We're going to, as we discussed in the last meeting, we're going to have, and you discussed and identified some of the criteria, some of the roles and responsibilities for conveners and for participants. We will have a short letter of agreement that will just simply detail that. And whether you're convener or participant, there will be an explanation as well in terms of payment is going to be linked to this. But as I mentioned, payment is going to be done in two parts, with the first part, which is going to be about 2/3 of the payment, and we will give you the detail upon signing the letter of agreement, and the remaining third upon finishing the work of the thematic brief. And so the first payment, I should have added the most important part. We will have, in addition to the letter of agreement, we will need an invoice from you. And the invoice, we will need it. Actually, Margot,
I have a template.
Yeah,
We
it'd be
do
really
need an
helpful.
invoice.
We do need an invoice. Yeah, we do still need an invoice. So, yeah, Margot, can you share a template for the invoice?
Yes,
That would be really
definitely.
great. And again, very important with the invoice, there's a few things to remember. First, the invoice has to have a clear number. So in other words, a clear reference. So when you issue an invoice, and you're going to have two invoices, one for the first payment, the second one for the second payment, make sure to give each invoice a proper reference number. You might call it whatever you want to call it. You might just give it the name of the task force and then say payment number 1, or you might, whatever, you might be used to doing this, but you need to give it a unique reference number for each of the invoice. The second thing is the invoice information needs to include a date that's accurate. So the date at which you make the invoice, and it needs to be in there. So it's any date that you produce the invoice. And it needs to have, you'll see, and Margot will send an example, the information around your name, your address, the amount, what it is for. And again, we will help you with that. And make sure that the name and the address, again, match what you've given in the information online for payment information and RW8. When things get stuck often is when we have an invoice that is from somebody and the address doesn't match. And in those cases, something doesn't match in the contact detail, and that's when things get stuck. They don't match your payment information. If they don't match your bank account information, things get stuck. So the invoice as well will need to be submitted. And once we've got your invoice, then payments and all the information and payments will be processed. Thanks, Margot. Any other question on payment and bank account information? I don't see any. Again, any question, come to us afterwards, reach out, and we will follow up and help you with that. The good news is once you've done all that hard work for the first payment, the second payment becomes very easy.
Absolutely.
It's always the first payment, which requires more work, yeah.
And we would just need to confirm for the group the amount for the first payment, because the invoice will be demarcated in US dollars.
That's correct. So I can give you the amount now. Basically, if you're a participant, so the total is $500. So the first payment will be for $350. And the second invoice will be for the remaining $150. If you're a convener, your stipend is higher in relationship to your responsibilities. It's $1,000, and you will be issuing a first invoice of $750. And upon finishing the work, the final payment will be for $250. We can also write that, and it will be in the agreement as well that you'll receive. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other question on payments and things, you can let us know. And thanks, Margot, for sharing the invoice template.
No
If you have any
problem.
question about you want to check your invoice to make sure it's correct, please reach out to Margot or I, and we'll be happy to make sure that it's correct.
No problem.
So now let me go to the next part of this process for payments. And it's probably the most confusing of them all, but it's actually once you we will reassure you that it's not as confusing as it looks. So let me see if I can get to this form. Okay, this is the second link that we shared with you in our message on the platform. And this is where you can access the W8 or the W9 form. Now, as mentioned in the message we sent, because you are receiving a stipend as an individual, and as an individual that's based abroad, you are going to need to fill in the W8 BEN form, which, if you see my cursor, it's this one, not the BEN-E and not the W9, the W8 BEN form, this one. Hopefully you can see my cursor. The WN form is a form that is required by the United States government for any actor in the US that's making a payment to anyone, whether it's a payment as a volunteer or as a contractor, as a consultant. Any payment that we make to somebody, actually the W9 for people in the US, the W8 is for people abroad. So any payment we make is recorded for the purpose of taxation. Now, the very important information to let you know is that unless you are a US citizen, you are not going to be taxed. So anyone, so actually, if you're a permanent resident, there's also, if you're a US permanent resident or US citizen, even if you live abroad, you get taxed in the US. But if you're not a US citizen, or you're not a United States permanent resident, then you actually are not a taxable, what they call a taxable entity or a taxable person. You are still required to fill this form. And the reason it is required is for the record of the company or the organization, in our case, the nonprofit, and also for the record of the US government. But that will not have any implication on the money you get. So that's one thing to really clarify, even though, and the instruction I have to tell you of the W8 are as confusing as ever. People read the instruction and say, oh, does that mean I'm going to be paying tax in the US? No, you're not going to be taxed. No one is going to take money or ask you to pay tax unless you are a US citizen living abroad or a US permanent resident living abroad. And I don't think that any of you are, but if you are, some people have double nationality, then it's important for you to let us know, because we need to have an additional form filled for that purpose. But everybody has to fill the W8 form. So I just want to be really clear for you to know this, because it is quite confusing. When you see the W8 form, it sounds as if it's saying that you're going to be taxed. So I just want you to be very clear that if you're not a US citizen or a US permanent resident, you are not going to be taxed. If you are a US citizen and a US permanent resident, you need to let us know so we can make sure that you've got the proper additional information. Doesn't mean you're going to get taxed either, by the way, because some of that will be also the amount of money, what taxes you owe, and all kinds of other things. But you don't need to worry about it unless you're a US citizen or a US permanent resident. So let us know, reach out if you are. Otherwise, you need to fill in the W8. I mean, everybody needs to fill the W8 ban form. Now, let's see whether I can get it. I was so, here we go. That's the beauty. So the main thing to know is you actually do not need also to fill all information. So again, you see it's W8 ban. Make sure it says individual at the top. Yeah. So it's very important that it's the ban E will say entities. You want to fill in individual, the W8 ban. Okay. So the main thing to do, and if I were you, I would not spend too much time reading the instruction because the instruction is so complicated. I don't understand the instruction. It's like incredibly complicated, but it's actually quite simple. You need to put in here your name. What they call the beneficial owner, it's basically you, your name, your citizenship, your address. Now, it says that you cannot use a PO box, which for some people is actually quite challenging because in some countries, there are no mailing addresses that are individual and PO boxes are needed. If that's the case for you, just let us know. Generally, what we do is we put the address without the PO number. The thing is actually, this form is not, they're not going to be in contact with you. But if you need to use a PO box, let us know, and we'll explain to you this further. Otherwise, just put your home address in here. So your mailing address, if it's different, it's the same. It's basically your permanent address, your mailing address. Use the address that is your home address, the address where you receive communication. Very importantly, that's where we go back. It should be the address that the bank has. It's the address that the bank account knows for you. They will ask you for a US taxpayer identification number. If you're not a US citizen or US permanent resident, you will not have such number. So you don't need that number. Yeah, you will not be using that number. So you do not need to fill this. And that's either your social security number and so on. Only for US citizen or permanent, you do not need to do this. It will ask for a foreign tax identification number. You do not need this. You do not need to fill 6A and 6B. You can tick the 6B little box there. You do not need to provide a foreign tax identification number. We need your date of birth. What else do we need? We need to fill in part 2. Actually, do you need to fill in part 2? So the beneficial owner is a resident of, you don't actually need to fill part 2. You need to certify that you have the capacity, so you can ignore part 2. Margot, correct me, but I don't think you need to fill in part 2.
No, you do not need to fill out part 2.
So ignore, unless you're a US citizen or a US permanent resident, ignore 5, ignore 6A, you can check 6B, ignore 7, and put your date of birth. So put 8. Ignore part 2, and then go to the signature. You need to remember to certify. I have the capacity to sign. You need to sign, and you can sign by having a printed version, or you can sign electronically. But with electronic signature, make sure that it's properly done, because often electronic signature, if they're not properly saved, they will disappear once you submit. So our advice is probably print it, do it with ink, and then do a scan or a photo of you, a good photo. Remember, make sure that the photo takes the whole thing of the signed form. And it needs to be dated as well, and your name needs to be printed. Once you fill the form, you've signed, you've certified, you've signed, you've dated, you put your name, scan or take a screenshot of it. And then you will be asked to upload in that form. Oops, where am I? I may have lost it now. Yeah, I've lost it. In the previous form that I showed you, you will need to, they will give you an opportunity to upload the signed W8 ban. Any question on this? It's pretty complicated, but it's actually simpler than it looks. I hope we've simplified for you what you need to fill in. You don't need to stress about this. This is a form that's kept for record. Ruma.
Okay, so I have a questions on mailing address. We have to write the mailing address, like if like in citizenship, as it is written in citizenship, or different one.
So for the permanent address, you mean that's in the W8 form?
Question number 4, for the question number 4.
For the questionnaire form?
For question number 4.
For question
Oh,
number
question
4. All right. So basically, it only asks you to fill it if the address is different from what you've given on the 3. So if you've already filled number 3, and that's your mailing address, because sometimes people have a resident address, and then they may have another mailing address for business, for example, and then they may use a different address. But this, if you've already put in, it's the same information. It's your address where you receive. Remember, this is the address that you're known as well to the bank. Yeah.
Right.
This is the address that the bank has for you. When the bank needs to send you mail, that's the address that they use. So once you've put in this address, you don't need to put mailing address unless there is a different address for the mail. So that would be the only time that you would need to put an additional address on the form. Does that answer your question, Roma?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, great. Aditya.
Hello.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to check with you whether, like, because I'm also part of USAID Care Leader Council.
Mhm.
So is it still I mean, possible to opt for this? Because currently I'm also working full-time employee. Secondly, I'm also part of USAID Care Leader Council.
Yeah.
And then if it is because they also ask us to fill up this form.
Yep. So if you've already got it for the Care Leaders Council, it's the same form. You don't even need to, if your information hasn't changed, you just need to resubmit the form. And yes, you can, to answer your question. The stipend is in recognition of your contribution, and your contribution to the US Care Leaders Council is one, and your contribution to this task force is another.
Okay.
So yes, absolutely, you can receive the stipend, and if you've already recently filled the W8, you can use the exact same form. You don't need to change it. Again, this is a form that's kept for record.
Actually, I filled up this form last year, but they have renewed our contract, but they didn't ask to fill up this form again.
You don't actually need to change if the form has been signed and is on record. You really wouldn't need to do a new one unless your information had changed.
Okay.
So if your mailing, your address has changed, or if your bank account information has changed, then you would need to fill this form.
Okay.
Or it's very old. If it's very old, like even if your information hasn't changed, but you haven't done one in 5 years or whatever, then I would ask you to do another one. But if you
Okay.
just did one last year, you
Yeah.
do not need. You can literally scan that copy into the system. That's absolutely fine if no information has changed.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya. Any other question on this? That is the most complicated part of it all, I have to say. But once you're clear about the information that that you need to fill, and again, you do not need to provide, clearly you don't have US taxpayer identification number unless you're a US taxpayer, meaning you're a permanent resident or a US national. If you're not, you don't need to fill this. You do not need to have a foreign tax identifying number, and you do not need to fill it. So you can check it to say it's not legally required. That really is the thing that most people get quite confused on. So just to be clear about that, you do not need to fill part 2, claim of tax treaty benefits, because you're not going to be taxed, and therefore you do not need to claim tax treaty benefits. And then you just need to make sure that you sign properly, that you date it, and that you print your name. And make absolutely sure, it often happens to us that contractors or vendors, they do this and they fill it online, and then they think they've signed and they post it. And unfortunately, because the signature has not been properly recorded, it doesn't come through. So my advice is, unless you're very confident about your e-signature, would be to make sure that you print it and scan it, the signed and dated version, and then you upload that one to the system. That's slightly safer. But if you're confident about your electronic signature system, you can also use that. Does this make sense? Is it helpful? Or do you feel that there are still a lot of questions, or any question actually for that matter?
Can I request one thing? If you can, send us all this in docket, one document, what is the thing and process, so it will be easy to, track.
Yeah.
Definitely. So we've posted online already in the platform the links in which you need to share the information, and we will be, and Margot, you'll be posting
Yes.
the templates there for you to have the template of an invoice, so you can use the invoice. And then we will send you the letter of agreement for you to review and sign.
Can you just send me the link which I can get access, because I'm a little bit confused which
Yeah.
are the link you're talking about. So if you can...
Aditya, did you check the message on the task force on the collaborative platform?
Yeah, but there are so many messages are there, so that's why if you can send us on email, so if it will really helpful.
Yeah.
Otherwise I can also check on the group, but I'm not regularly checking. Honestly, I'm not regularly checking the task force, but I'm getting the messages on my email.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you will need, Aditya, you will need to also pay attention to what happens on the platform, on the messages. And you can log in and you can check. It should be quite easy,
Sure.
because your colleagues, your conveners, will be using that. They will not be sending separate email every time. So you will need to be getting familiar with using the platform and the task force, for the purpose of making sure you know what information is being shared by your colleagues.
Got it. ठीक है.
Okay, great. Ruma, I see, after filling all the forms, do we have to print and scan and have to attach it? Yes. So the form, let me see whether I can go back. I don't know, it might not let me go back. Oh, it does, okay. So once you get into this form, it will give you the link again to this W8 ban form. It will tell you what type of form. So in this case, you would do W8 ban, your legal name, meaning your name, and your contact email. And then it will ask you to attach the completed form, so the signed form. And that's where you would upload it by clicking on choose file. So once you've got the signed version. So my advice would be to print it and scan it. Or if you don't have a scanner, you can also use your phone and then upload the file through the attach, the choose file online. But again, make sure that if you're going to use a phone to take a picture, that it's a very good picture, that all the information is readable and very clear. Yeah, don't take a shot and it's blurred or it's partially cut, because that's going to be a problem. And then you upload it by clicking the choose file button and submit. Does that make sense? Ruma, does that answer your question? Okay, great. Again, any other question, if you have any issue when you do this, just reach out and we will troubleshoot that with you.
Hi, Florence.
Yes.
I have a question in regards to the permanent residency.
Yes.
In Kenya, we actually use the PO box as a mailing platform. So I don't know how you're going to advise us, because most of us really do not have a permanent residency address. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's a very good question. And I'm quite familiar with this because we work a lot with colleagues in Kenya. And so that's something that comes up. So my advice to you on this is to use, generally when you don't have a PO, you have at least the address that says, I'm trying to think of an example, but it will say, for example, if you're in Nairobi, it will say which district, or you will have some information around your location. Yeah. And so you use that. You don't for the W8 form, what I would suggest is that you don't actually add the PO box number, but you add the rest of the information. So wherever your district is or your location is in Nairobi, put that as the address.
Okay, so should it be one name, or okay, let me say, for example,
Yeah.
I'm based along Thika Super Highway in Nairobi. So should I just write Thika Super Highway, Garden Estate Road, Nairobi, or
Exactly.
should I just write Nairobi?
No, what you said first, the highway, near the highway and the road. Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
thank you.
Just wanted to add, Florence.
Yeah.
I mean, same case is happening with me also, but I'm carrying the address proof as my CCI, I mean childcare institution address. Although I'm staying on rented place, but on all my legal documents, the address is showing my childhood institution. So is it still okay to do that, or do I need to make something like temporary address which I have been taken rented place for the
So
accommodation?
what address does your bank account have?
It's my CCI organization. I mean,
Then I would
child-
use that, unless because I would use that because it needs to match
Okay,
what your bank knows.
got it.
If that's the problem, says no, but you would need to match. So use the address again. This is for record purposes. Yeah, people are not going to be mailing you anything. Well, hopefully people will not have to mail you anything. So this is for record purposes. The important thing is that the mailing address that you give is the one that the bank knows. And think of it in terms of, a lot of this is for security purposes. They want to make sure that the payment goes to the right person. And so they want to make sure that the person, the address and the name that's on the bank account matches the address of the person that's asking for the payment. And that's why it's so important to have the two matching primarily. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Now, if as long as that's not an issue for you, Aditya, if it's an issue for you, then let's talk separately and we can think of what else to do. But if having the address, retaining the address of your CCI is fine, then use that.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. And again, for those who have an address that's not that's a PO address or that's an approximate address, because on the W8 form, they don't want you to use, they say you cannot use a PO address, just use the address without the PO number. That's fine. Does that make sense? Well, it doesn't make much sense, but is it okay? Does that, does that clarify things? Hopefully. Any other question? I'm aware about time, so I just wanted to make sure that we had covered everything. But do you have any other question? Any other? Beck, did you want to come in?
No other comments from me.
We just want to make sure that the information is clear. Once this information is in the system, then it's actually very simple. But just to make sure. But again, just reach out to us if you've got any further questions as you're filling this or as you're talking to your bank. We will work with you to make that as easy as possible. Perfect.
Can I ask a
Mhm.
question? This question is for Rebecca. Rebecca, I has just checked on this task. There is just want to get clarity because I just logged in Transform Care for Children.org. Is that you are talking about task force?
So that's the platform. And then you'll see if you click on the groups tab at the top in the ribbon bar at the top, it'll come up with a list of the groups, and then you'll see specifically the name of this task force. So transition from care and engaging with care leavers. You'll see that task force. If you're not already a member of that, but I think you might be already part of that, but that's how you access.
I actually send a request to join. Okay.
Which I believe has been accepted. I'll have a look at it after the meeting just to check. But yeah, that's how you access the group, and that's where we post all the meeting times, links, any updates or information. And that's where the platform that the facilitators will primarily use to communicate with the rest of the group.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So
No
that's
problem.
why I was not getting update. Since only Rebecca, you sent me that mail to fill up that form. That was the only email I got. And then I didn't got any update. So now I just send a request.
Excellent. We'll approve that. And then just check your spam box if you don't see the confirmation email come through straight away, because sometimes it'll go straight to your spam box. Once you've confirmed that your email address, then you'll have full access to that task force platform and you can use that to communicate.
Okay. No, I didn't apply for that task force group. That's why. Now I just send the request. Thank you.
Great. Perfect. Thanks.
And also, just to say, Aditya, you can also, once you've registered and that's been approved, you can also check what kind of notification you want to receive in your email. So it will actually email you every time there's a message. Yeah. Perfect. If there's nothing else, we will be in touch and we will be ensuring that do reach out to us if you've got any issue. And we will be making sure that all that information again is posted. Margot's going to be adding the template, and then we'll be able to help you with anything. But we should be able to get this done fairly quickly and painlessly, hopefully. Thank you so much, everyone, for making the time.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome.